Okay, we are live with our really early hangout. This is going to be hopefully a shorter one. I have Keith Davison here. We're going to talk a little bit about the ISWA chairman vote that's coming up on Sunday at the ISWA annual meeting. There's been a lot of information going out, but I think it's to me, it's been kind of on the download, not a lot of people talking about it out in public. It's been a lot more, texting people and sending emails. So kind of wanting to get this out in the open so people know what's going on. And if people are debating on going to the ISWA meeting or maybe something else that day, that, clubs have a representative there, so they have a voice. Just to start out, what goes on with this? Keith, can you explain a little bit about the vote and how it goes down, who can vote, and all that, all the goodies with everything that goes on with that?
Yeah, to start, do you feel like I look like Larry King a little bit with my shoulders shrugged?
Nah, you don't have quite the raspy voice.
On, but okay, so you're asking about the vote and the voting process?
Yeah, who can vote, or actually, how does the process go? I know that technically you're not on the ballot, but someone has to stand up and say, I nominate Keith Davison. They can nominate whoever they want, really. But then after that, who can vote, and all that can, just tell us who can vote and how that process goes through then.
Sure. To start, little technicalities, phraseology. The ballot is the yellow card that was to have been sent back or postmarked by August 1st. So the ballot would have been tallied to establish a slate as to who gets voted on. So it's terminology I got a little bit up to speed on. So on the balloting process, I think I was told that I missed making the slate for chairman by one ballot, and so now the process is somebody will stand up at the annual meeting on Sunday, which starts at 9 o'clock Eastern time at Lawrence North. Somebody will stand up and nominate me, at which point I will be included on the slate for chairman, which I very humbly and excitedly appreciative of. So questions around that? The officers.
Yeah.
Officers for any sanctioned ISWA club need to be present for the meeting to have their vote counted. And there was some confusion about that. And I think that got clarified the last couple of days. The ISWA sent out an email indicating otherwise, that actually proxy vote could be kind of sent down by your courier, whether it be another club that was attending or your section director or what have it, that you could have sent your vote with them. Carrier pigeon, I don't, what other, you get it down there.
Yeah.
But I understood that today that was actually verified, that the bylaws were correct in saying that proxy votes are indeed not going to be votes that count. And
Okay.
It's got to be an in-person listed officer of currently sanctioned clubs.
Okay, yep, that explains a lot. So that means basically the Carroll, I can't send the Carroll Wrestling Club vote with Garrett or Chesterton or whoever else is down there. So it makes a lot of sense. You have to be there in person, and it doesn't have to be the president, but it has to be someone listed on there on the charter for the club.
Right.
So, and a little bit more, I guess, the chairman of the ISWA is basically, kind of what I'd consider the president. Obviously it's very much of a democracy with the ISWA, a lot of people making decisions, but they're the head person of the ISWA basically. So just so people know, it's technically called a chairman. You could, probably people would probably more recognizable name would be like a president of that nature. They make some big decisions, but also that the way the ISWA is structured, that they don't make all the decisions, and that's a lot of the board has to vote on most if not all the issues pretty much. So with
Yeah,
that,
I've been a chairman of a charity for a few years, and I'm 15 years strong into that charity currently. And yeah, the chairman is not necessarily the boss, but is the one that's kind of most accountable to maybe the symphony director.
yeah, yes, sounds, it's a very good analogy there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
One effectively employed would be more like that.
yeah. So with that, I did post these questions. We're going to kind of go over the questions that I just posted on the website and that we can discuss them. I've read over the answers, I've looked over some, and I kind of construed some other questions that are going off on these. Some of the answers, I mean, they're very good answers, and it's, first off, I think we need to get these kind of things out there and know what the reason behind you coming up, stepping forward for this is. First question, tell us a little bit about your wrestling experience.
It's not the money.
Definitely not the money.
No.
So, tell us a little bit about your wrestling experience as a competitor, coach, things like that. You don't have to go into great detail, but I mean, just a little bit about, what you've done on and off the mat as a wrestler.
Started wrestling, got recruited in by, pardon me for a second. Hey, Luke John, could you grab me the power cord for this? That could be bad, right, Joe?
Yeah. Yes,
started in second grade, bridged over from Pop Warner football. I played football all the way through high school, and I found football and wrestling collaborated pretty well. And I think Coach Struck is probably pumping his fist in the air about the multi-sport athlete approach there. But yeah, so I started in second grade, and remember my first tournament at Lebanon where I left my shoes at home. My dad got a flat tire on the way there. I sat on honey in the toilet. And that was back in the day. That was our energy drink. Ended up, I think I placed second, but I wrestled that tournament in my socks. We got a flat tire on the way home. And I'm one of those guys that my dad and I thought that was a really good experience. So we continued wrestling. 40 years later, I've kind of risen through the ranks. So struggled early on, struggled midway through, and then started getting some traction in middle school. And then, when puberty hits and the deck gets shuffled on everybody, you know how that happens. I went through a period where I thought wrestling wasn't much fun. And then I started going through puberty as well. And regional qualifier as a freshman, I broke through my sophomore year and qualified for state and took third there. And then one of my last 2 years, fortunate enough to get a scholarship to wrestle at the University of Wisconsin, actually in between high school and college. Junior Nationals, I got second. So we called it, Fargo was called Junior Nationals back then, Joe.
Yeah.
Was at Northern Iowa. And so I went on to Wisconsin, two-time All-American Big Ten champ. Struggled plenty there as well, but all in all had a solid career. International success, not a whole lot of it. I got third at an Italian tournament that we went to that was actually sponsored by John DuPont. Got sixth at U.S. Nationals 1 year. Wrestled Dan Mayo and Chris Campbell. Humbled by them, but university national champ. But then I decided to grow up and move away from wrestling, and I helped out the University of Chicago for a little bit and trained at Northwestern for a while we lived in Chicago, but opted that it was not something that I was going to be able to make a full-time job, make money for it. And, I suppose I wasn't feeling that passionate about it at that point. Moved back to Chesterton, and a few years after getting back, I began helping out to coach the club, and my involvement grew over the years and became, I'm currently the president of the Chesterton Wrestling Club, used to be called Dunland Wrestling Club. Uh, Served many roles on that board as well. Assistant coach in the high school, and I guess that's pretty much it. I've been on the ISWA national teams. I've been fortunate enough to be the last 6 years, going back to schoolboys. I've been a coach for schoolboys for 3 years, cadets for 2 years. Just did my first year at the junior nationals. Finished my third year as a Fargo coach. So we've sent a bunch of kids from Chesterton to, on these trips, my sons included, of course. And yeah, I've been very fortunate to get in the loop on that stuff and to kind of maybe earn my keep, but also have the good graces of the selection committee having me on board.
Yep, that's very going all the way through. You got to see the schoolboys. You didn't just start out at doing Fargo. You saw the schoolboy level, then you went through, cadets. That's always good to move up and see the. I mean, that's youth wrestling. You see where it starts, and that's really good. What's your day job? What's your professional experience, and any other? I know you mentioned earlier you're on another board, and other kind of affiliations that. Kind of a little bit of what you do, and then also what kind of other things do you do in your personal life that would be pertinent to this position?
My day job is I'm a financial advisor, financial planning, investment planning, that thing. I work with Ameriprise Financial now. Been doing that since 2001. Started that business from scratch, from the ground up. So I struggled quite a bit in that business early on and got it off the ground, and had some good success with it since then. And I have good work-life balance at this point, kind of like getting an airplane off the ground. That business is, you got to fly like a son of a gun with the thrusters pushed way ahead to get it off the ground. But, once you get up to cruising altitude, it does give you some nice work-life balance. Still not easy. I just kind of shift my time more. I leave early to be at a 3 o'clock practice, and I have to put some hours in after practice is over, and working weekends and nights. I have an office set up at the home, which is pretty good. So yeah, very fortunate to have that as my my profession. Happy that I got that off the ground, I guess you'd say. Charity experience. I list on there that I used to be on. I got recruited to be on the Westchester Public Library Board. It was one of my first volunteer experiences. It's kind of an interesting thing to see, but it was. It turns out that I was outside of the district. The lady that recruited me on there was one of the trustees that recruited me on, and then came to find out I was out of the district, so I stepped down from that board. I've been 16 years with Rebuilding Together. We're actually the nation's largest volunteer home rehab organization. So I am on the executive board for that organization, which helps people that are low income, elderly, and disabled make necessary repairs to their houses when they can't afford to do so. So if they're like struggling to pay for their medicines or have a leaky roof, obviously they're going to choose medicines, or we help them make those necessary repairs and kind of age in place. Most people, as they age, you've probably experienced it with somebody in your family that, it's really hard to cut the cord on the house where you raised your kids. And a lot of people want to age in place, so we help them do so and do so more safely. So I've served in many roles in that, including the chairman of that when it was troubled in 2002. I was in kind of dire straits, and I didn't feel like I was going to be able to make much of an impact on it, so I was going to step off. But then I got recruited back on to the board to take a leadership role as a chairman to help kind of right the ship. And I answered the call for that, and 15 years later, the organization's in really good shape. And I'm currently serving as the fundraising chairman. So I have a pretty good system in place, and had our most successful year yet as far as fundraising goes. So I do, in addition to, I'm a salesman with my job as a financial advisor, but I have to service those that I sell. So I have to make realistic promises and deliver them.
Yes.
I have a lot of really good business experiences that kind of developed from that. Same thing's true with the fundraising chairman role, where um, I'm basically selling to get people to throw money at our organization and our cause. As I could rephrase that to say that I give them an opportunity to get involved
Yeah.
in a fine organization. We've got a really good brand locally. We've done tremendous amounts of work for our community, and it's, in addition to being really good for the homeowners that we serve, we also do other community projects. We have we provide one of the better volunteer experiences out there, and that's something that I've always been proud of being a steward of, to help see to it that those people that come out to help us execute our mission feel like they're doing something good with their Saturday. So I have a lot of pertinent experience, I think, comes to the table for this role. I know there's some concerns about me not understanding what goes into it, or I had any idea as to how much time it would really take. I mean, I spent a lot of time as a president of my club, which I've submitted my 1-year notice as resignation in that role. The fundraising chairman role with Rebuilding Together is something that I may step, if I were fortunate enough to get this, the nod to serve as the chairman, I would have to evaluate how much work would go into the chairman role. And obviously, my primary focus.
Yeah, definitely. Good answers. Definitely a lot of things that, you can see that you've done outside of wrestling that can transfer over, and especially having experience fundraising, dealing with, I'm assuming they're not for profit, which would be the same thing as the ISWA.
Yeah.
And the ins and outs of all the legal stuff, and there's a lot of things that go on with the not for profit that you probably don't usually get, not in like your professional business. You don't worry about that stuff because you're trying to make money. Here you're trying to make money, but also you have to do it legally and go through some hoops.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I just mentioned there, as I try and sell myself, I've believed that it's important for me to volunteer and to serve in things that I'm passionate about. There's nothing I'm more passionate about than wrestling. Wrestling's been extremely good to me. I've gotten to wrestle internationally, China, Italy, numerous national trips. I got a lot of my education paid for. I've helped pay that forward to my kids and some other kids in our club. We have 3 guys that are now wrestling in college. I'm extremely passionate about wrestling, and hoping to steer us towards being more of a national power than a frequent participant that has some bright spots.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that. I mean, I look at some of these kids and they're going, like Alara Boyd. She's in Athens, Greece right now, and the experiences these kids are getting now, especially with the younger cadet teams, and being able to go all over not only the country, but sometimes even the world, to events, and that's pretty neat. And it's definitely a great experience. You look at like Sarah Hildebrandt, Kayla Miracle, some of the previous wrestlers from Indiana that just get great experience. And I mean, that you can't there's no way that you can get that doing other things pretty much. I mean, it's a cool experience, and whether you win or lose, it's something that you'll take home with you no matter what.
You read all those names off. Do you have the Mount Rushmore singlet hanging up in your house there?
No, I don't. I didn't get that one.
On the right side of that singlet, weren't you?
No, I wasn't on that one.
Angel Escobedo.
Angel, Howe, a Miracle, and Humphrey. Yeah, Humphrey, Howe, and Miracle, and
right.
Hildebrandt. So yeah.
I believe that Maurer and Coughlin didn't make it up on that thing.
Yeah, they're 2 great ones, and I think it's neat I see kids I've coached. I see other kids have been able to go all over the country just to wrestle.
Yeah,
and it's pretty neat to that's one thing that as a coach you want more kids and to do that, and you want it's a fun experience, and that you make a lot of great friends, and you got a lot of great memories. I have memories of driving up to Fargo, going to North Carolina, going to Iowa, taking kids all over the country to wrestle. And I remember maybe 30 seconds of the match, but I can tell you the whole story on the trip down there, trip back, and things like that. So
yeah. the getting to college, getting some help paying for college, the travel, all that stuff, the good memories that come with that. But just the character forming lessons that are given by our sport are, it's really one of the only ways that we can have our kids struggle anymore without getting a lawsuit. They're
Yes.
for cruel and unusual punishment, and I've been really happy that I've had this tool, this instrument of challenge and
Yep.
suffering to help them learn how to pick themselves up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great stuff. It's really, really, really pretty cool. But yeah, just kind of underline one of the things I dropped in there is that I'm running because I want us to focus more on being a national power. If not the national power, one of the top five.
Definitely agree. That was the next question, but you good segue into that. Definitely reading through your answers, I saw a lot of coaching type things that you'd put a lot of focus and a lot of effort into the coaching side of things and getting kids on the national teams, getting kids that experience, because that will obviously make them better. Get going out to Fargo, going to big national level tournaments and seeing that competition, whether they win or lose, they'll get better from that. Go ahead, expand more on, why you're running. Kind of, if you want to expand a little bit more on that, or we can move on to the other fun questions. So,
I'm kind of at a point in my life where I'm starting to phase out of my coaching responsibilities at Chesterton. My kids are moving from being more full-time coaching responsibilities or opportunities, however you phrase it, to kind of fly in the coop. And I'm going to be twiddling my thumbs quite a bit as they fly the coop. So I'm kind of at a point in my career where I like the idea of a new opportunity, a new challenge. Yeah, I got to tell you, I have for the existing board, most notably Mr. Rossbottom, I have a ton of respect for the countless hours of volunteering that goes into keeping this thing up and running and helping it flourish on many, many fronts. There are many things that we do well, and we're a healthy organization by all rights. And I'm not here to smear names or sling mud. I'm running because I think we need to mix up how we do things from a competitive standpoint. We're very good running tournaments, very good with pairing. We have an excellent stable of referees, as I put on my notes to you. And again, we're very good at participating in national tournaments and sending teams to many different places. I don't feel like our focus is sharp enough on doing so in a more competitive way and expecting us to move towards being a national power. And those are the things in particular that I've as I've done some outreach, those are the things that I've heard that we've been doing things for the same things for the last 15 years as far as how we run these things. When Coach Erickson was running, I think that the junior goals team, I think there was some pretty good momentum that was going with that. And again, I don't mean to say that we've had again lots of participation. So I think we're a good team player for USA Wrestling from that standpoint. But I want us to be wrestling up on the elevated stages as a team.
Yep.
I want us to have more guys in the All-American rounds at Fargo. Again, elevated stage out there. It's pretty cool to be able to stand up on your fist, under the super bright lights and give the kids the opportunity to be excellent.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like there's some things that I myself and some of the other guys that I've been coaching with at these trips, Fargo, the last 3 years, I feel like wrestling's obviously important to the ISWA right now. How could it not be? It seems silly to think of that, but to really focus on kind of breaking the model and modeling some states that are near us. I've developed good relationships with, become good friends with people in the Chicagoland area in Illinois. Some of the best coaches in the nation. Coach Medlin just got the job as the RTC director at University of Illinois. Coach Paul at OPRF. Coach, lots of benchmarks to be had in Illinois. Got some good friends in Ohio and Michigan as well, and Wisconsin's got a pretty good training system they've been employing. So there's just a lot of benchmarking and things that I feel like we're starting to get left behind for Christ's sake. Excuse me. Tennessee finished in front of us, and they had a upstart year, but they're starting to make gains. I see that happening, and I have envy, and also I have some. Will give me hope, I suppose, that we can shake it up and expect more for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that you are touching on a little bit is we do have a very good organization, and in all honesty, it's one of the top organizations in USAW. But at the same time, I know you've probably told your kids this when you're coaching. Good is always the enemy of great, and I mean, we can always do better. And I know we'll get on the board and we'll complain about little things and stuff. Things like the 2 qualifier stuff and whatever it is. But we do have a very good organization. They do work hard. A lot of hours go into planning and a lot of things we do. So we should be appreciative of it, but we should never be satisfied. Just like when you're a wrestler, you're not satisfied getting 4th place. You're not satisfied getting 2nd place. You want the gold medal, and that's how we should. Yeah, that's how not only you should do it in the wrestling mat, but hopefully we teach our kids right and off the mat that you strive to be the best, whether it's your professional job or whatever it is.
There's a quote that I saw. Actually, my son Andrew shared it with me. It was, the danger is not in setting your sights too high and missing your goals. It's in setting your sights so low that you hit them. That's just kind of pretty poignant, and so I think we need to set our sights higher. Okay,
so what kind of things do you think can be improved? I know you've touched on it a little bit more. What kind of things do you think the ISWA isn't doing good at and could do a little bit better?
I think for us to be building momentum with wrestling development, I think we need to get multiple sections kind of coming together and having it be a bit of a brain trust and collaboration to come up with a model for consistent training model. It doesn't have to be completely standardized, but I'd like to see us utilize somewhat of a common language, maybe a syllabus of wrestling that employs some core strategies. And USA Wrestling's got a bunch of stuff that we can benchmark from. And I think so we're all speaking the same language, and kind of rowing in the same direction. I think that would be really powerful. In addition to the regional training center opportunities that we currently present, I think we'd do well to implement some training camps in advance, multiple training camps in advance of the national trips. With the pinnacle being Fargo, and it doesn't have to be just for Fargo participants, but the ultimate guide would be the ultimate goal would be to have us develop and better hone the skills of those that are attending at Fargo. So multi-faceted training system there. We've got a lot of successful coaches that were successful wrestlers that are great technicians, and some other guys that weren't as successful as wrestlers that have really studied the sport and are extreme fans of it. And forward-thinking, strategic thinkers about it that we need to be leveraging. And again, as far as building a brain trust of people that would help us to build a better mousetrap. I've got like 10, I could rattle off 10 guys right now that need to be in that room when we're having that conversation, or Google Hangout. Now that I know how to do a Google Hangout, we could do a Google Hangout.
Oh yeah, they're not too hard, and definitely.
So having a better training system is important, but also getting more organized on the front end to be able to explain to people what's it take to make the cadet national team, junior national team. What's the criteria? To have that established early on and publicize that. To have your coaches set early on in addition to your team leader. Build a list, including those people that fit that criteria, and have your top tier guys that we're trying to recruit to fill these teams, and market to, and being systematic about it, just like you filling your tournament at 650. You said you're going to cap it off at 650. You create some demand for it, and you turn that thing into a very tough tournament, and people want to come to it. So, we need to convey to people that the experience that they're going to get is a very competitive one, that it's in demand, and we're not begging anybody to be on this team at the 11th hour. We're giving the best kids the first blush, the first right of refusal for this, and then we're going down the list. So that whole thing has got to start sooner. We've got college coaches that were involved with our team this year, and they didn't get a chance to, outside of when we showed up in Tulsa, they didn't get a chance to develop relationships with these kids that could do well to go to their schools, or coaches could benefit from having take looks there. These guys are professional recruiters, and we just didn't utilize them to help us build that team. We did double I guess we got 33rd in freestyle at junior duels year before last, and this year we got 16th, and it was good, and I was proud of that performance, and I felt like we had some holes in our lineup, and we competed hard. My son Andrew tore his calf, and the guy that busted his collarbone, and we got all banged up, and we still, we did compete well, and I was proud of that. But I think if we're more organized on the front end of that, and we communicate better, and create more hype, and I'd like to see us have better gear. I think that's a really key component to getting kids to be excited about their experience. And there's been some neat stuff I've seen over the last 3 years, but I'd like to get the kids more involved with the design process, or at least the selection, to further create some more hype to that end. So that's got to happen early, and you got to be very organized for all this stuff to come into play, and it's just got to happen much earlier. And I think the first thing we need to do is convey that it makes good sense for people to take a week out of their year and $600 out of their pockets, hopefully less, and that's something we should talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
To go to this national competition, as opposed to staying home and training for Fargo, or just not going because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Is that too long of an answer?
No, that's a good answer. I mean, you're touching on some of the other questions, which is good.
Yeah.
You did say
4 minutes over, Joe.
Oh, we'll be fine. If it takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer.
How many people are watching?
It says like 20, 25, but I don't know how accurate that usually is. A lot of people do watch them afterward. So
we'd be in the tens of thousands.
Nah, I'm not that popular yet.
Okay.
One of the things you did talk about, you touched on, is hype and building that hype. I will admit that, with the Indiana Mat tournament, we do, I tweet a lot. Social media is very big, very good way to get to kids, they see that stuff. They see it on Instagram. They see it on Snapchat and Twitter. Very good way of promoting. And the ISWA has been kind of, if you look at the board, they're, most people have been a little bit older. They're not, the most technologically savvy. Nothing against them. They've just not been, older people are not the best with technology, but just recently, I think it's only been about a year that they've had a Twitter. They started Instagram. I believe there's a Snapchat. I'm not 100% certain, but things like that. And I know I started the Facebook page way back about 7, 8 years ago. So Facebook's been around for a little bit, but utilizing that kind of stuff to promote, promote the sport. What do you think? I guess the current usage, I see it sometimes it can be very heavy towards certain areas, and that's no fault for anyone, but it's just when the people that have the control over it are from certain areas. Obviously, your information is going to be from that area. I try with mine not to too much about Fort Wayne stuff. I try to do more statewide, but at the same time, I'm sure my stuff is more Fort Wayne centric. But what do you think about the current usage, purpose, and even potential? What can just talk about the ISWA, the social media usage, because I think that is something that you can get to kids with. You can promote, like you said, gear stuff. Hey, you could have a vote on there. Which singlet do you want, 1, 2, or 3? And get that hype going around there. Oh man, they're gonna have cool singlets for Fargo. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a handful of kids that say, man, I want to go to Fargo now because I'm going to get a cool singlet. I'll pay whatever it is, $800,000, because, they're thinking more not just for the singlet, but okay, now I get good competition and I get cool gear. So go ahead on the social media usage and stuff like that.
I think there's at least a couple, if not a few people that are involved with the social media that's being done. And I think it's done as, I think it's a tack-on role that somebody's doing in addition to their normal responsibilities. And I think it'd be really sensible for us to take somebody that's a marketing specialist and perhaps social media. I think marketing in general, there's print media still, and appoint somebody to really run that process with focus and intent and strategies, as opposed to just kind of lobbing stuff out here and there. I'm guilty of doing that myself with our own club's website. I've started to so I do a bit of I've started to use social media through my own business for LinkedIn and Facebook, and I use a guided service for that where we pay a subscription, because in the investment business you can't just throw stuff out there without it being analyzed in many different ways. So so I'm starting to pick up on that, but ultimately there's people out there that would love to have an opportunity to get involved and employ their specific. There's got to be people out there that would like to take on that role to help us with whether it be fundraising or recruiting or retention or just building a fan base or promoting trips. Of course, reminders for annual meetings are important, and registration for the state tournament and national competitions as well. But I think it'd be good if we understood the cycle of what our message that we're trying to convey should be out there. How do you think we could use Indiana Matt for that? Even though you're not. You're not actually, I probably shouldn't be talking about you because you're not listed as a relevant website.
Yes.
You guys lock horns a little bit. So.
Well, I mean, it's more or less, you gotta, I know I am no professional tweeter or anything. I just, you gotta have a good balance in that. It's one of those things. Indiana Matt can retweet stuff. We have quite a bit of followers, and even a little bit different types of followers. You cross promote events, things like that. Because I mean, we both, on the social media platforms, we both have a lot of similar, but there's still some people that don't realize ISWA has a Twitter or Facebook or whatever, that kind of stuff. Cross promoting would get that out to more people, and maybe some people follow ISWA but don't realize Indiana Matt has a Twitter or even know what Indiana Matt is. I even actually had some of my kids I coach didn't even know what Indiana Matt was until this summer. So that kind of stuff, just doing the cross promoting, and with social media, it's about sharing and growing your fan base And that's what I think. I mean, the ISWA definitely needs to keep promoting that kind of stuff and getting clubs on board, getting that kind of them clubs and high school teams that have the Twitter accounts and Facebooks to start involving them more, so that they are more likely to retweet stuff, and then that kind of grows. It's just kind of like a tree, you know. He goes out to the Carroll Wrestling Club, Carroll tweets it, and then you gain a few followers. So things like that. It's as you said, it is a kind of a tack on job, and no one really, that's why it's kind of off and on. Sometimes you get some articles and it kind of goes in, I've noticed it goes in spurts. It will go, you'll get a bunch of information, for a couple of days, then all of a sudden it's dead for a couple of weeks. And, promoting things like reminders for, state tournaments, meeting information, I know they've been posting things such as the minutes and the ISWA newsletter. That should be tweeted out and said, hey, here's our newsletter, check it out. We have update from Fargo and some of the reminders, things like that should be going out there. And then, you're starting to get usage from everybody. You're involving the whole state, and people are going to read that kind of stuff and get linked to the website and find out everything that goes on with that.
Right. Yeah, I'm learning more about it, and the stuff that you're saying is making sense. And just ultimately, we need a specialist, big mm-hmm. specialist in there. And of course, with PR and something I've done with the charity work that I do, the Rebuilding Together, and some of the other stuff too, help raise money for the high school to get a $750,000 turf installation. So I helped with that too. But the media presence is extremely important to remind people.
Yep, and that gets out to 3,000, however many thousand people that are following, and it gets out to them quickly. And people are on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're seeing that kind of stuff constantly. Kind of segue kind of to the, not technically the next question, but it's also the communication with the ISWA. I think it can be a little bit better. I think that they have the access to people through the online system, such as emails. And I think a lot of the stuff just goes to the presidents of the clubs. And that's not, a lot of rules, a lot of, any, like the announcements from this week, obviously they're more geared towards the board members and presidents of each club. But at the same time, information, communication. What do you think about the ISWA's communication? How can it be better? Is it good, bad, ugly? What do you think about it?
It feels like a leading question. That gives me your opinion a little bit. But I don't know if we need a communications manager as well. I know that Tina Tante wears a lot of hats in her part-time role with the ISWA, and communications is one of the things that I feel like she does a nice job with. That part of that would probably be a part of public relations and PR, and communicating with our not constituents but our participants and members is something that probably needs a little bit more focus.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always see is that
I'm not running on it. That's not part of my that's not part of my thing. But I think it's an important thing that we need to focus on. And if I were lucky enough to get the nod, I'd like to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think things like the minutes and the newsletter. Personally, I think that should go out to. I think the anyone that signed up for USA card. I'm pretty certain you should be able to have the email addresses, since everything's done online. Plus, you should be able to sign up. I'm not on that list, so I'd love to sign up and get the minutes and get the the newsletter. It's kind of quirky. I just like to know what's going on. Things like that. Kind of, I've been reading the minutes. I've been checking the website and reading the minutes, seeing what's going on. I like to know what the ISWA is thinking. I don't want to know about this 2 qualifier rule or oh wait, we shifted it to 4 this year, and I don't want to find out about that. And then
Right, sure.
in mid March, I'd rather find out about it. No hope. Geez, they're talking about that. In November. If I have an opinion, I probably should say something, but also, I want to know so I can start preparing my kids to know that kind of stuff, or just anything that goes on. I think that's part of the communication that, not everyone goes to the meetings, and I don't want to say it's a secret club, but at the same time, if I'm not getting it sent to me, I don't really, it's not on my mind that I don't, I forget about it till it's too late. We'll go on. The participation on the dual teams, I know you touched on this a little bit. This is something you're pretty passionate about. We've had some good teams here and there. I think you were probably a coach on the cadet duels team when they placed pretty high. I think there's Red and Brayton Lee and
Joey and
it was a heck of a team. You look at, I can't even, I just remember I want to say they placed top 4 or even maybe 3rd. They were right in the match to go to the finals, but we had a real good team that year. And, you think that was 3 or 4 years ago. So a lot of those guys could have been on the junior duels team last year or this year, but only a couple of them probably were. I guess, talk a little bit about that. What's the difference between that year? How did we get a pretty hammer team top to bottom, and what the kind of struggles we're having now, I guess, as far as trying to fill those teams, and what we can do better to get, to keep those kids coming out for the dual teams every year, the better kids.
Again, I think organizationally, we need to convey that it makes good sense for them to trust that we're going to put as good of a team as we possibly can on the bus. And I think there's 3 people that I reached out to that were on our kind of must-have list that were just like, I'm going to train for Fargo. I'm going to go to another camp. I'm going to visit a college instead. They didn't feel a draw to go there and compete. And I really think that starts from an organizational standpoint. And of course, success breeds success. Usually, however, that cadet team that you spoke of, we got some kids that are going to college this year that didn't participate in the team this year because they already had their scholarships locked up. And so I think we need to recruit better. I still think we need to recruit better and defray the cost to make it less of a crushing financial burden to being just a significant financial burden. I don't think we should give scholarships to everybody and make it extremely cheap, because that would kind of devalue. The fact of the matter is ISWA has a lot of real costs, and getting the bus and the hotel rooms and and the gear. So there's a lot of costs that have to be defrayed, and some of that, and I touched on it yet. I'm good at fundraising. I have access to. There's a number of people that have approached me and said that they have ties at corporations such as Eli Lilly downtown, and they're just looking for places to give money. They're looking for opportunities to get involved and place their money in a way that helps them be a good corporate steward. Grant writing is another thing that I've gotten good at too, and I'd like to help with that. So as far as how we making it less expensive is important. Being guided with how we defray those costs. I think we need to try and help those that are. We got to figure out how we can get those that are struggling financially to be committed to going, and kind of do a little bit of screening on the front end there to make sure that we're not, like with Rebuilding Together, we don't help people that have financial wherewithal. We run a little financial screening on them to have them just disclose some basic financial income, expenses, a couple of statements, and if we're going to invest in a kid, that should be an okay thing for us to expect a parent to be able to participate with. So that's kind of a rambling answer, Joe. But,
Yeah, that's one thing that I think you did touch on. That is actually one of the next questions. We're not going to probably go over all of the ones on here, but that is a big one. Is the cost for things like Fargo duels. That's a very big reason to not, kids come up to me, I can go out to Fargo, but it's $1,000, and you're trying to justify, okay, you can do this and this. I mean, you can do 2 or 3 camps, or you can go to Fargo. Those types of things that can, are weighing on kids' minds. And it's something that's very real that, we do have different events now. It's a few years ago, about 10 years ago, Fargo and duels were about the only thing you could do to get recognition. Now you have so many different events and everything with social media that you can get your face out in front of a lot of different my wife just came down here. A lot of different, coaches. You can get things that you can send videos, huddle, things like that. So Fargo isn't it's not the end all be all, but at the same time, we should be getting better competition. And I think money is why for a lot of them. How do you think you can, I mean, obviously fundraising is probably the biggest way that you think that we can probably decrease those costs greatly. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah. Us, first for us to put the burden on, I think ISWA should be holding the bag, should be responsible for helping to get funding to help us reduce the costs for everybody. And I think kids, it's not often you see kids selling raffle tickets or doing car washes anymore. And I think it's, I don't want to make it too easy on the kids. I want them to have some skin in the game. I'd like to coach them, give them tips on how to do effective fundraising, how to we do a pancake breakfast at the local Euro shop, as funny as that sounds. We could do a silent auction in there. We don't, but we raised $3,000 with, our high school team selling a bunch of raffle tickets. It's not a novel idea. I think we just kind of have to empower and coach and guide and push them in their own direction to, I guess, teach them to fish as opposed to give them a fish.
Yep.
So I'd like to see more of that. I didn't hear many stories outside of, I know one of the coaches established a GoFundMe page for one of our more successful kids, and that seemed pretty good. I don't know if that approach works well in our community or with, I myself, I don't want to hand kids anything. I'd like them to earn it a little bit more. So, okay. So to summarize, the ISWA should feel responsible to reduce those costs. I know Illinois charges an extra $5 for their coach's card. And I really like the benchmark from Illinois. I'm tired of getting our arses handed to us from them and not really learning from it enough. So they got some processes that they do really well, and that's one of them is possibly raise the coach's card cost $5. You're going to get a little moaning and groaning, but for the most part, the coaches are, joint stakeholders with the organization trying to help. They'd see that as a fundraising opportunity. So all that money goes into a bucket to help with their national costs. I also know that they do pay full freight for some of their financially struggling participants. Sometimes they're better participants as well. But I'd like to learn more about that. Joe, I don't have all the answers. I don't think ISWA is totally broke. I know that we have not been, I don't think we've been competitive from a board standpoint with how we're filling our national teams. And I think we've got some team leaders. I've been very impressed with Pompey ever since I've met Thomas Pompey, ever since I've known him. He treats the job of being the team leader like his, like it's his profession. And it's been fantastic. Brady Eppert has been team leader for Fargo as well, and he totally wraps his arms around it and is very dialed in. Jake O'Neill's been fantastic as well. And there's been a lot of good work done by other individuals as well, but those are kind of like the gold standard people that I think. So they're doing a good job there, from a communications and a hyping standpoint and a fundraising standpoint and a criteria first standpoint, and then recruiting. I mean, really, we have to recruit.
Yep,
and,
definitely.
and educate. And eventually it'll be like Illinois, where they're crawling over themselves to get to the second chance qualifiers, to just have a chance to get on to get on that team. I mean, it's really in high demand there, and I think we'll get there, but we have to put some effort forth towards it.
Yep, they have definitely Illinois definitely gold standard, especially Fargo dual and the freestyle Greco duels, definitely the gold standard. And it's I would like to know personally, I'd like to know what they do, somewhat that just they're. I mean, they take 80 kids for junior Greco, and they have more kids like junior Greco than we have in all four styles
Right.
combined. And it's I look at that and I'm like, and you're only supposed to have like 50 kids or something like that, and they'll bring 80. So they have kids that have, they have 30, 40 kids that qualify, through junior or through regionals and UW cadets and juniors, UW cadets and juniors, that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see. I would like to know more because they've done something that is way better than we do it, way better than 99% of the states do it. And they're looking at, you look at a lot of things I've seen and read. They said, well, Wisconsin and Minnesota bring good teams and full teams, but they're real close to Fargo. Their costs are significantly cheaper than Illinois or Indiana because of travel, because of all that kind of stuff, which helps a little bit. I mean, if you can knock $200-300 off, it makes it a lot more appealing. But Illinois is about in the same boat as far as financial, how much it would cost to get there. So we're kind of looking at, what did they do? Ohio brings pretty good teams. I don't know how good their organization is, top to bottom, but I know they always bring good teams and get that hype with those kids. So a lot of things that we can do in that area to, and look into what Illinois is doing, because they're doing something right and they're doing something that's, doing well there for them.
Yeah. Some of the things that we need to do to put wrestling on the front burner is, just a little bit more focus, and see to we have driven individuals that are collaborative, organized, clerically organized, and get on it early.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, we're gonna wrap up here.
Fine.
Some more questions online. If you guys, there's just a couple other ones. I think you touch on pretty much every question in one way or another. But I'll just let you one last statement, I guess. Any
can I beg you to the two qualifier rule with freestyle is a real bone of contention with many people.
We can go over that one. That's fine.
As just real briefly, I do feel like it's a necessary evil. Without that, the local tournaments go away. Local tournaments are philanthropic and altruistic and want to do what they can to help, but they're not going to do it if nobody shows up. Or very few people show up. If they have just as many volunteers that are out there that roll out, 5-10 mats and clean the place, and popcorn goes uneaten at the concession stand, it just doesn't happen. So for us to if you build it, they will come, doesn't really work in that case. If you have a tournament, they just haven't been coming. So we need to encourage local competitions to give wrestlers an opportunity to wrestle in live competition. That's not, you don't want to take them from no Olympic style competition to state and then go to a national tournament and think that you have experience. I really feel like it helps foster more mat time, given that we're not currently we don't have a glut of demand for freestyle or Greco attendance. Mm-hmm. So I know that you could argue back and forth on that. I'm open-minded. Again, this is all just words if I don't get elected, but I would love to hear some alternate ideas to helping us continue growing the sport in the Olympics styles.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in that sense that you need to be able to wrestle a few matches to get that the feel of freestyle Greco. It is different once you get in that rhythm. I think it's not too bad. I will put you on the spot a little bit. One of the things that I know I have seen personally is, and I really shake my head at, is the weeknight events that have kind of popped up, a few here and there, that are used as qualifiers where they're wrestling for 2 hours ish. And
Creative solutions.
yeah, I agree with the creative solutions. Are those, to me, I'm looking at it as a coach, they're creative, and that's something I actually I jokingly said to some people a few years ago when the rumor was, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do this at Carroll, we'll run 2 mats or whatever, and say that we did a qualifier, and people started doing that. But at the same time, it kind of seems almost like a cheap way of getting your qualifiers in that, in a practice, I can get an hour of live wrestling versus 10-15 minutes at the very most if I get 3 matches in, and that's if I don't tech the guy in a minute. Is there a way that, I mean, to me, that it seems like a cheap way of getting your qualifiers in. That's just my personal view, so that's no other view, but it doesn't. I've seen some pictures and they weren't full mats. They're kind of just wrestling in a wrestling room and I'm a qualifier, that kind of stuff. To me, it doesn't sit well because it's kind of a cheap way of saying I got my qualifier.
Yeah, and I would. I could see people feeling wronged about it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things I've seen as a coach, and it's something because I kind of jokingly said that we can do that. It's one of those, I just look at it as, okay, we can do the qualifier, and heck, if I have 10, 15 kids that are interested in going to freestyle state, we can host 2 of them on a Wednesday night,
Yeah.
they don't have to travel anywhere. And it's the same as coming to practice on Wednesdays.
Yep.
And then we get some Garrett kids and we get some, kids from, Fort Wayne area and all that to come in and get their qualifiers. And then they don't have to travel, which I do like the idea that we don't have to waste a Saturday driving 2 hours to Indy to, wrestle a handful of matches. And, that's my whole Saturday.
Yeah. And that's kind of the beauty of the elementary wrestling league concept, where you have friendship duels, and I call it speed dating. And that's, I kind of don't want to say like, hey, like you're speaking to the point. You don't have to burn your whole Saturday to get 2 matches with a 3-hour wait in between the first and the second match. If there's a better, faster way to do, speed dating is the way to do it. Maybe we find a way to make that a little bit more, I don't know, I guess I'd say standardized, but yeah, I'm open to solutions. And, like I said, did you want me to close?
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted as you talked about the 2 qualifier rule, that kind of came up to my mind. That's something that I've kind of felt really, to me, it feels a little weird. I don't disagree with it, but it's just like, okay, we're supposed to have these big, tournaments. You're going to be there for 2 hours. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like a real tournament if you're
I'm picking up your disdain for that concept, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I like it for my kids. If I'm going to do it, I love it because I'm not going to go Saturday, but at the same time, it kind of just feels weird with me. And that's the biggest thing I can.
Yeah. Oh, damn, then it's a bad idea. Just kidding. So, in short, I think it was Einstein that said if he had an hour to solve the world's biggest problem, how would he go about it? He went on to say he would spend 55 minutes evaluating the problem and learning what the true problem is, then develop a solution and fix it in the last 5 minutes. So the Japanese and their manufacturing processes involve them. It's like there's a tendency for, I think, probably a lot of combat sport athletes to want to rush out and solve a problem before they really understand what it is. And that's kind of me, but I don't really understand what our problems are cleanly enough yet. I know that we're not It's spoken volumes about how we need to expect more and to put wrestling on the front burner and become why the hell can't Indiana be a national power? As opposed to, yeah, it's a pretty good state. They only have one class in high school, and every now and then they kick out some national champs and All-Americans. Let's put us in the conversation with the Ohios and the Oklahomas and Pennsylvanias, and shoot for the stars. So, yeah, I don't think I have answers. I think I'm a good leader in that I bring good energy, and I've never been one that's it's 9 o'clock my time. I've got quite a few hours into preparing some of these questions and thinking about the questions it's been a really good process for me and going through the candidacy to just consider it. But I don't think I have all the answers. I think I have some of the answers, and these answers that I feel like I've gotten are not my own. They're ones that I've gotten from other people that I know, like, and trust, people that are benchmarkable. And I've evaluated enough in my 6 years involvement with the ISWA officially as a coach, and a very productive club, that I'm not going to be. I really don't feel like I'm going to be over my skis should I get the nomination, and I'd really appreciate everybody's support. And again, that meeting starts at 9 o'clock Eastern, Lawrence North in the lunchroom. The officially stated board members or officers for the chartered clubs, in order to have a vote count. And the vote is done early in the meeting, and it's written down, and it's not, you don't have your name on it, so it's a private vote. That happens very early in the process. For that vote to count, it has to be a chartered club and one of their stated officers, as per their recent rechartering or their last year's chartering.
Okay. And just as a clarification or addition to that, I know there's a form that if it's not someone that's on there, that you can fill out that they are a certified member. Like if say you didn't put the secretary, but you can say, is that true? I thought I saw an email where that said that you could submit or did that get changed?
Yeah, I thought that got shot down.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I know I saw an email about a week ago.
Yeah.
I got forwarded that had that. So that has to be on their charter.
Yeah. So that's basically a proxy vote. There are no proxy votes that will be elected. It's got to actually be in the flesh, stated officer for a chartered club, whether they're there to bid on a tournament or not. They have to have an officer from their club sitting, handwriting.
Okay.
That ballot. So covered a lot of ground here tonight, Joe.
Yes, we did. I thank you for joining me, taking time out of your day. I know it's been a hectic week for myself, but
I'll bet good luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
We want to have the opportunity to see. We've got a couple, maybe a few, 2 guys I know for sure that are attending. So.
Yep, should be. Don't feel free to come up afterward. There'll also be plenty of wrestling going on. So, with that, I want to thank you again, and hopefully things go well. We get some answers, and hopefully the ISW keeps going in a good direction.
Well said.